This liberation movement is not waiting. It will not wait until that time when all the ideal conditions have been put in place. It is ongoing. People are dying in real time. Oh, yes. People are fighting and pushing back La République du Cameroon in real time. People are resisting La République du Cameroon in real time. And you and I must also rise to the occasion and continue to do this in real time while we still continue to push for the ideal conditions that we want to be in place to come into being. I said that when we decide that we are waiting, we have a lot of people who are dying. Take a look at my screen here. These two people you see here, these are not a couple. No. The man in white that you see there, his name is Ba George Formatung. And the lady you find there, her name is Chancel. Yeah, her name is Chancel. This gentleman and this lady you see there were brutally, I mean very brutally murdered by soldiers of La République du Cameroon in Nakaa. Nakaa is a locality in Bali. They were brutally murdered in Nakaa. That is mile 87. And that is in Bali. So the gentleman you see there is, he was the chairman of the Presbyterian Church congregation in Nakaa. And the young lady that you see there was the cheerleader. Her name is Chanceline. I said Chancel was Chanceline. She was the cheerleader of the Christian Youth Fellowship group, also in Nakaa. These two people, those two individuals, were pulled out of their homes and killed by the soldiers of La République du Cameroon in a very brutal manner. And when they were killed and they left, of course, as always, manipulations took central stage. You start hearing about unidentified gunmen, and then they will tell you that although no one has claimed responsibility, fingers are being pointed at those they call separatists or self-defense forces and the likes. Let me be clear here. You see, this gentleman is one of those foot soldiers on ground zero who took upon himself to go from one community to the other in and around Bali and in some parts of Chomba to try to build bridges between the self-defense forces and the local population. He heeded to the call that we have always made and worked very hard to ensure that the civilian population was protected at all times. Because I said it always before, where there is synergy between the self-defense forces and the local population, the people will be protected. What was his role? He was not a fighter. He never supplied anything like weaponry or anything, or even finances to the Southern Cameroon for to the Ambazonia self-defense forces. No. All he did was hold meetings here and there with people to say, if you want assistance from the people, ask for this assistance peacefully. Don't brutalize them. Don't take it by force. His role was to say, create safe corridors where our mothers, our fathers, and the young people who want to cultivate crops, who want to to cultivate the fields or to do agriculture would do safely without being attacked for one reason or the other. He contributed a lot in letting the self-defense forces understand that if you want to get into confrontation with the soldiers of La République du Cameroun, go meet them in terrains where the civilian population is far away from, so that the people will not be victimized after your actions. This gentleman, Ba George Formatum, was not a fighter. But just like you heard that lunatic in Bamesing talking, that is how some individuals in the community went surreptitiously and gave his name to the soldiers of La République du Cameroun, to the B, and told them that this man was a friend of the self-defense forces, that he was harboring them because he had a drinking spot, that he was harboring them, they were drinking at his place, he was very friendly to them, that he was even financing them, and that transactions were even being made through him to supply them with resources to fight. The same thing they talked of this poor lady, Chanceline, who was selling food. She was cooking food and selling in the bar where this Ba George Formatum was selling his drinks. She was just selling food. And her crime became that she was supplying food to the self-defense forces. And so, they were set up. The first step is that the soldiers of La République du Cameroun came around and burnt down the compound of Mr. Ba George Formatum. They burnt down his compound to ashes, took him away, detained him, held him for some time, I think along with his wife. And finally, when they released him, they forced him to promise that he was going to work with the forces of La République du Cameroun to set up the self-defense volunteers, to set up our self-defense forces for capture. And they told him to lure them all the time to come to his bar and then give them a call whenever they are there, so they will come and capture them and go and kill them. The same thing they told Chanceline. One way or the other, apparently, when Ba George Formatum's house was burnt down, when he was captured and kept for some time, they even extorted from him before setting him free on those conditions. And when they set him free, apparently, the self-defense forces sensed that that freedom would never have just come like that, because they already have a clear idea of exactly how the forces of La République du Cameroun operate. And of course, I've told our people all the time, there are always informants among the forces of La République du Cameroun, among those B people. And these people always inform our self-defense forces, or inform people who inform our self-defense forces. And so apparently aware, they completely stayed away from Ba George Formatum's place. And so, when a few days ago, the self-defense forces carried out some actions and set some explosive device that killed a number of La République du Cameroun forces in a makeshift camp that they created somewhere around Mile 90 or somewhere towards Ngwakan. They thought they had had enough. And they said, since they set Ba George Formatum free and got into a deal with him and Chanceline, they have never got a single denunciation from him or any piece of information from him saying they had either seen the self-defense forces going this way or the other way, or that they were at his bar drinking and they should come for their capture. And so their conclusion was that since they believed that he was cooperating with them before, that he had simply continued to cooperate with them and had informed them never to come again to his place because his bar was under watch. And so they came for him on this fateful day. When they came, they met him. He was with people behind his house or behind his business place. They were drinking and they were having a meeting. So they called him out of that meeting. You know what they did? They shot him in the chest twice and on the head and killed him. And when they did, the soldiers of La République du Cameroon, for that they got his wife mercilessly beaten. Mercilessly beaten. The first people met her, of course, she confessed to them that they were forces of La République du Cameroon. And when they killed him, they asked the people who were sitting there and drinking with him, who should be aggrieved that their brother had just been killed, they asked them to clap for them for shooting him dead. And you know what is even most ridiculous about it? The man who shot Ba George for Matum is a son of Balinyunga, who happens to be a member of the B of La République du Cameroon. A son of Balinyunga. It won't be long before we will get his name. You will hear fallacy like you have seen here. They now go and publish here, as you are seeing on that article, they say the persons were shot dead on Sunday night. They're talking about the Sunday. This Sunday is the 9th of February. That they were shot dead on Sunday night around Nakaa, my 87 Bamenda, Northwest Region. A source has confirmed to CNA. And they said armed men opened fire on the victims, killing him on the spot, or killing on the spot the chairman of the Presbyterian Church congregation of the area, George from Mantum, and another member of the church who belongs to the Christian Youth Fellowship Group CYF, Chanceline, was also killed. And then they go further to say, and I know you won't say this, that's why I took a second screenshot, and they go further to say, down there, that sources added that the victims were targeted because their houses were attacked by the armed men. Are you understanding here? They say sources say they were targeted because their houses were attacked by the armed men. Did you hear that? They were targeted because their houses were attacked by the armed men. So, if the armed men come and burn their house, then they will target them. No. Everyone that knows their houses were burnt down by the forces of La République du Cameroon. They were captured and detained for some time before being set free on the conditions I outlined earlier. And then this article continues, as usual. They say they were shot as soon as they responded to the authoritative call from those commanding with guns. Though no group has claimed responsibility, sources suspect separatists. Of course, as usual. But my dear people of Ambazonia, I said here earlier, I will not stay silent when I know the truth. I will gas it out because this is too important. And as you will discover, I had the opportunity to talk to someone who happened to have been in the area when the shooting happened. He happened to have been around that area and arrived there time enough to get from those who were there exactly what had happened. Because he's a person who's well known in that community, I'm not going to, play his voice as it is. I would definitely do a little masking on his voice. I'd like you to listen carefully to this communication. Follow.
Yes. 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 Okay.
So did you hear that? So when he shot, they were drinking palm wine. He said them. They were drinking palm wine. So when they came, caught him up, shot him on the chest and shot him behind the head again. And then the man who shot them, of course, was a son of Balinyunga. When he shot, he spoke in Mungaka. He told the people there who were also well molested and said, clap for me. They should clap for him because he shot that man dead in front of them and he shot them in good style. This is horrible. This is inhumane. And like I said, there are always people who are among us. They are always our people. You heard that lunatic from Birmingham. Continue.
Oh, the military, wait, so the military should be Nabaliman. So the military will kill this man. Nabaliman. I see. Okay. I see. Okay.
So, long story short, that's exactly what happened. That's how they killed Chanceline, and that's how they killed Bad George Formatum. And the reason they killed them are the reasons I have just advanced to you. My dear brothers and sisters of Ambazonia. And you see, as soon as they did it, they had their agents who immediately misinformed those who were coming for information to say it was unidentified gunmen and that the way it happened and all or not, although no group has claimed responsibility, fingers have been pointed at the separatists. Hell no. This is exactly what happened. And like I said before, knowing what role, I've told you people here a lot of the time, that we have a lot of foot soldiers on the ground whose role is to go from community to community to try to build synergy between the self-defense fighters, between our freedom fighters and the local population to ensure the safety of the civilian population. These manipulations have been on and on and on, and we must continue to fight as best we can to establish the truth where it counts. Because it's the same thing that happened with the murder of Barrister Kemende. You must have noticed that I don't say Senator Kemende, because as far as Senator is concerned, I don't believe in that. He wasn't representing us there because we had refused to be part of it. But he was obstinate. He felt that, don't forget, that Barrister Kemende was one of the foundation members of the consortium. But in the end, he decided to fall back and said, while others were fighting whatever way, he wanted to go into the parliament of La République du Cameroon and fight them. But you are all aware that the parliament of La République du Cameroon has never had the opportunity even once to discuss this matter, although they claim that we are part of their country. You heard recently that Joshua Ossi had written to the government, to the executive of La République du Cameroon, pleading with them to finally authorize the parliament of La République du Cameroon to discuss the ongoing genocidal conflict in the southern Cameroons. Can you imagine that? People who say they are of another arm of government, that they are elected representatives of the people, that they are representing the whole country in that parliament, and claim that we are part of their country, but say they are struggling to obtain authorization from the genocidal government of Mr. Paul Biya to discuss the Southern Cameroon's question in their parliament. But again, like I said earlier, this is the same manipulation that followed the murder, the brutal murder of Barrister Kemende Henry Gamsi. Just so you know, those who killed Barrister Kemende Henry Gamsi are part of the same group that killed Martinez Zogo in Yaoundé. I always tell our people, don't watch things and forget. Don't hear things and forget. You know, Barrister Kemende Henry was one of those in the Senate of La République du Cameroon, who continued and came with a lot of evidence to denounce the disappearance of billions upon billions of CFA through budgetary lines 65 and 95, ligne 65 and ligne 95. The same budgetary lines that took Martinez Zogo to his early death. And because Barrister Kemende was too vocal about it and questioned Louis-Paul Motaze about it over and over, took him to task seriously about it in the Parliament of La République du Cameroon. Amogo Bellinga, the Minister of Justice, Laurent Esso, Louis-Paul Motaze of Finance, and all those involved were never going to sit quiet and see Barrister Kemende continue to dig into an area that they thought he should never send his nostrils into. It's the same group that killed, that's part of the same group that killed Martinez Zogo in Yaoundé, that got to Bamenda and killed Barrister Kemende. And you want to know? I will give you evidence very soon. Let me first of all visit Capo Daniel, who, as soon as that thing happened at the time, came up with the following testimony. Listen to him.
Greetings, fellow Ambazonians. This is Capo Daniel. I have come today to brief you about the assassination in Bamenda of Barrister Henry Kemende. Barrister Henry Kemende, who was a Pan-Cameroonian SDF member of La République Parliament, who was doing so against the which of our people, was a strong critic of Mr. Paul Biya and was also against Cameroon prosecution of this genocidal war against Ambazonia. He was assassinated in Bamenda following his kidnapping in Mobile petrol station by 4 Cameroon military French-speaking officers. They approached him while he was filling his jeep.
Did you hear what Capo Daniel said? By 4 military officers from La République du Cameroon. One thing I want you to know is that these military officers that killed Barrister Kemende were not among the regular soldiers dispatched by La République du Cameroon to occupy our land and who were fighting in Bamenda and the environs. No, they were not. These were special forces sent from Yaoundé by the Directorate General of External Research for this specific mission. Capo Daniel was aware then. Let's follow again.
With petrol, they bundled him, put him inside his jeep, drove him up to Maitunkwen, where he was removed and shot from behind. The bullet penetrated his heart. He was then rushed to the hospital by bystander, where he was pronounced dead. The few words he uttered to the people who carried him to the hospital was identifying his killers as Cameroon military men, and he promised them, he told them he had money in his account. Unfortunately for him, money could not save him. He was pronounced dead as soon as he arrived in a PMI health center in Kwen.
So did you hear that? That before he passed, before he died, Barrister Kemende Henry Gamsi himself, his last words to the people who surrounded him was that he was shot by members of the armed forces of La République du Cameroon. These are from the lips of Capo Daniel, not me. This corroborates what I heard from the ground, from intelligence that was gathered at the ground at the time, from hospital sources, from people who happened to, handle him during the last moments before he died. And I'm going to give you another very important element to behold. Follow.
The barrister had contacted me to wish me Happy New Year on the first.
He did. Okay, he contacted Capo Daniel. All right.
Of January, and he informed me that he had changed his WhatsApp number because he was being monitored by the Cameroon military, who are accusing him of supporting the separation of Ambazonia. He told.
Of course, we all know Barrister Kemende was extremely vocal, very, very vocal, not against our liberation movement, like some of those church and bill politicians. He was vocal in the interest of the people of the southern Cameroons. What interest then would any southern Cameroonian have had to take out Barrister Kemende? Capo Daniel says it himself, that Barrister Kemende told him that he was being tracked by soldiers of the Republic of Cameroon, to the point where he changed his number.
Told me that Cameroon officers had visited him in his residence in Yaoundé. That is why he was not available for what in his regular contact on WhatsApp for a while. Greetings, fellow Ambazonians. This is Capo.
So you heard that. So not only was he being tracked, he was even visited. Just like I told you all here a while ago about the call that I had this 11th of February. So he was even visited, and he confided this in Capo Daniel. And of course, he was killed. And when he was killed, Capo Daniel had what he just said to say. But what is curious, because I want to play this one before I say what I know. But what is curious, and before I take each and every one of us to witness about the facts, what the facts say. What is curious is that this is what the same Capo Daniel spoke a while ago now says today.
Number one person which Ayabacho have committed murder against, which I can testify and confirm, is the assassination and murder of Senator Kemende. I was the Deputy Defense Chief of the ADF. I was a spokesperson of ADF. I approached Ayabacho when Kemende arrived in Bamenda to inform him about his plea that he wants to go to his village and that the ADF should allow him access. Instead,
so he was the defense chief. He said he was a senior deputy defense chief and he was in charge of the ground forces. So, is he telling us that he received and passed instructions to the ADF forces on the ground to commit the murder? Let's hear if that's what he's saying.
Kemende was killed by the ADF. His vehicle was later found in the camp where the ADF Brigade of Tanka was keeping that vehicle. Based on my communication with Ayabacho, Ayabacho was directly involved in the killing of Kemende. It is a fact that the ADF carried out the execution of...
How was he directly involved? You were the defense chief. Did he instruct you? Did he pass the instructions to you? And then you commanded the boys to execute? That is how we know it's involved, because you were in charge of the forces. You were the intermediary. He'll give you instructions, and he'll give you guidelines, and you will give instructions for execution. But let's follow.
Kemende. And that is a fact which he cannot deny, because I can testify of his connection to that particular crime, which I rejected at that moment where he proposed that Kemende should be arrested. He proposed to me that he should be arrested, and he was killed in that process, whether it was done deliberately or not. But the fact that Ayabacho consistently refused to answer my direct question to him during those periods is an indication that he was directly involved in the plot to assassinate Kemende. We also know for sure that there have been CPDM people who were eyeing the seat of Kemende, who had bribed ADF soldiers to carry out the assassination. That one we know for sure. So we know that Ayabacho was involved. Number one.
So you see, between the first clip, where Capo Daniel speaks naturally, fluently, puts the things effortlessly out, and the second clip where you now see him not bothered about being natural, being fluent, but babbling, trying to create connections and to build things that don't really add up. It tells you exactly what this is all about. But now, what do the facts say? And this is about the last thing we're going to say on this broadcast. My people of Ambazonia, don't forget that soldiers of La République du Cameroun based in Bamenda finally did catch up with the 4 individuals who purportedly killed Barrister Kemende. They got up with the so-called Amber Boys, whom they said killed Barrister Kemende, and they were with his car that they had taken possession of. They met them at a petrol station. There were 4 of them, and the forces of La République du Cameroun shot and killed all 4 of them. Do you recall? Those reports are there. Search it out. The forces of La République du Cameroun killed all four of them. Usually what happens with such high-profile investigations, eventual capture and killing, the forces of La République du Cameroun will take the corpses of these people they will refer to as Amber Boys and go and display them in a public place and call the population to come and witness them, and they will be identifying them. They will keep their ID cards on them and put their sticks on them and say, these are the people who killed Barrister Kemende. Did they do that? Does anyone anywhere recall that when the forces of La République du Cameroun finally confronted and killed the 4 individuals who assassinated Barrister Kemende, did they display the corpses? Did they? We know how they operate. When they kill people whom they are accusing of doing something, the corpses are sure to lie somewhere and everybody will come and see. We saw the corpse of big number displayed on the streets in Batibo, in Guzang, the public place open to pass, and stayed there for days. We saw them display the remains of General Bitakola in the public place and call people to come and line up in triumph. They did the same thing with the remains of General Transporter. They have been doing that with the corpses. You see, they always do that. They display the corpse and call people to come and see. So these are people who killed a senator, and the forces of La République du Cameroun finally confronted them, not in the bush, not in the forest, at a petrol station, which means in town. Fought with them, killed them. But what happened is that after killing them, when they went out to identify them, they realized that they were soldiers of La République du Cameroun. All of them even French-speaking citizens of La République du Cameroun. Soldiers. And that is why nothing completely was ever said about them again unto this day. When they discovered that those 4 people were all soldiers of La République du Cameroun, from La République du Cameroun, on a special mission. There definitely was miscommunication somewhere. They did not involve the local forces. They didn't have, synergy amongst them. That is how they encountered these people, and because they were armed, they couldn't take chances to go close to capture. They killed. And they were thinking, according to their theory, that they were who they call Amber Boys. But after killing, they went on to identify them, and they saw that they were forces of La République du Cameroun. What followed? Silence radio. I say what followed? Silence radio. Barrister Kemende died because of ligne 65 and ligne 95 at the Ministry of Finance, involving Amugu Bellinga, involving Louis-Paul Motazé, involving Laurent Esso, the Minister of Justice, involving the Director General of the DGRE, who is also in jail today. That is what killed Barrister Kemende. They want me not to talk. I will keep talking. My dear people of Ambazonia, I know today has been a pretty long day. If you were still here watching until now, then I want to give you kudos. Make sure you share this communication and share as much as you can, because our people deserve to know these truths. because these truths will set our land free. And like I said, don't hesitate to fund your freedom. Fund your freedom. Freedom is not free. Freedom is not free. Fund your freedom. Don't wait until that time when there'll be total unity, when there'll be total synergy, when everybody will come together. People are still dying every day. The liberation movement is going. The fighting is ongoing. It is not waiting. Nothing has stopped. So you can also stop falling. While we are waiting to put things in the ideal form that we want, we must keep moving. We must keep moving. That means we must keep doing the things that we are supposed to do. I want to thank each and every one of you for being part of this rather long broadcast. And I know that this is already the early mornings of the 12th of February in Ambazonia, in Bamenda, in Ekok, in Ikom, of course also in Accra. It will be the same time in Boya, in Bongo Square, and it will be the same time in Ebie. Obviously the same time in Elumbambo. Thank you very much for being part of this broadcast, and to God be the glory.